very strange when you told me that one day your dreams would change, that you were a sucker for strong silent type. Told me how after all these years, how the crossroads dropped you off and left you here, and how once you leave you can never go back. Now I've walked 1,000 miles in your shoes. My clothes are torn and tattered, my ego bruised, and I think I understand you now. Yes, I understand you now.
My song, I Understand You Now, was inspired by a review of my and my parents' lives. For years, I harbored anger and resentment towards both of my parents for my crazy childhood. I wondered how they could let things get so bad. I wondered what kind of man I could have turned out to be if I had only had a normal childhood. It was many years ago when I had a life-changing epiphany. I had the day off from work and I had been drinking heavily. It was the middle of the afternoon, my wife was at work and I was at home, laying on our bed in a drunken stupor. I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm just like my dad. That thought morphed into, this must have been what it was like to be either one of my parents when they were drinking. I lay there and I reviewed their lives and my life. As I assessed the list of many bad choices I had made over the years of my own life and how disillusioned I had become, it occurred to me that one bad choice can screw everything up. When I was a kid, my parents seemed bigger than life to me. Even though they both struggled with addiction, they seemed infallible. Sometimes to me it seemed as if they were playing a role in an old black and white movie. Tears streamed from my eyes as I realized how I was struggling with my own addiction to alcohol. It was then that I realized what it was like to walk in their shoes. It was at that moment that I began to see my parents as being human. Like each of us, they were once two young, intelligent, beautiful kids with their entire lives in front of them. One wrong choice sent them both careening off the road and to the bottom of a cliff. It was at that moment I began to understand them, and I sobbed out loud, I understand you now. One day when I was shaving, I looked in the mirror, and for the first time ever, I saw my dad staring back at me. It occurred to me at that moment that I can't hate either of my parents because there's a part of each of them in me. To hate them, I'd have to hate myself. It felt as if a huge weight was lifted from my shoulders, because it was at that moment that I found complete forgiveness in my heart towards both of them. You can't run away from your past, so you might as well confront it. Without forgiveness, the road to recovery is near next to impossible. All three of my siblings had issues with my mom. See, my mom could be the most beautiful, kind, caring, loving, empathetic woman in the world. She had a huge heart, and she had a tremendous sense of humor. But if you pissed her off, or if something didn't go the way she thought it should, she would lash out at you verbally and say the most hurtful, damning, nasty things that you could think of. For instance, once when I was 12, I had a tantrum because my mom wanted me to do something and I didn't want to do it. We were in the kitchen, I had this tantrum, and I kicked the broom closet door off its hinges, and it flew across the kitchen and hit the wall. And my mom turned her back to me and said, "Oh, you're retarded and everybody knows it." And I was stunned. I was just completely floored that she would say something like this to me. And I'm like, I'm retarded. I'm 12 years old. And I remember from that day forward, I really wondered what was wrong with me. I thought, well, maybe there really is something wrong with me. Because, it's just at this age where I was, discovering myself sexually. I was just discovering girls. I couldn't get girls to like me. Then I started thinking, well, maybe girls don't like me because I'm retarded. After all these years, I realized my mom would say things that didn't always make sense. But, the way I look at it is this. If the definition of being retarded is someone who's published 4 books, 5 CDs of original music, written 150 songs like I have, painted paintings, and been pretty successful as a photographer as I have, then I'm a retard. My mom was a phenomenal artist. She could paint, draw, sculpt, even do cartooning. When I was a kid, it was fascinating to watch her create. She inspired me to become an artist and is the reason why I'm an artist today. Near the end of her life, I asked her why she gave up her art, and she said she was a sucker for the strong silent type. She also said sometimes your dreams change. It breaks my heart to think of her giving up such talent for my dad and her 4 kids, 3 of whom would have nothing to do with her near the end of her life. What a waste of talent. What a waste of a life. She had a great sense of humor and an infectious laugh. Her sense of humor got me through a lot of tough times. She gave her life to make up for the mistakes she made when I was a kid. I'll always be grateful to her for that. I just wish I realized that and could have told her when she was still living. This is a painting I did of my mother. I guess you would call it on plein air, because I did it it was an impromptu painting I did one night while my mom and I were watching TV, and the title of this piece is Thursday Night Television. And I named it that because every Thursday night, my mom and I would watch TV shows like Seinfeld or Cheers, things like that. We would sit and just watch these TV shows, Seinfeld especially, and we would just sit there and laugh and laugh and laugh. I realize now that I captured a moment in time, not just in our lives together watching TV, but in her life. What I see here is a woman who went from this beautiful, petite young thing, and over the years, life had just beat her on the rocks. She had just been smashed upon the rocks. And I think here you see a woman, and what I depicted unintentionally, but what's depicted here is a woman who is defeated. I think she's kind of defeated and she's broken. And the expression I captured on her face is very sad. It makes me sad because I know at this time when she's sitting here, my mother was dying from emphysema and lung cancer. I bet you my mom is pissed that we buried her in the same cemetery as my father.
Well,
she's probably rolling in her grave saying, "How dare you bury me?
Hopefully not.
Near your father." But yeah, I like to come here every couple of years. I don't know what purpose it serves, but it's nice to at least try to keep their graves kind of cleaned up. It's a pretty cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my healing process was finding empathy towards my parents and forgiveness towards both of them. And even though I'm not completely out of the woods and I still have a lot of issues I deal with, I found forgiveness towards both of my parents. And it's a huge, huge step towards recovery and towards happiness. And I feel for both of them. I feel deeply for them and their struggle. Their lives are miserable. And I know this because my mom said that every day that they were married, every morning that my father woke up in bed next to her, he'd roll over onto his back, look up at the ceiling and say, "Oh shit." And those are not the words of a man who's happy. Those are the words of a man who's struggling with something. And I can tell you, I think my dad struggled with something. There were demons that were haunting him and chasing him. And I'm not talking about biblical demons. I think my dad struggled a good portion of his life with something, and I don't know what that something was. Every now and then, Mom would say to me, "I wonder what your brothers and your sister are up to." She'd then say, "I sure wish I knew what I did to them." One time, after telling her I had no idea what they're up to because I hadn't spoken to them either, she said, "You know, I think hell is right here on Earth."
Strange when you told me that one day your dreams would change, that you were a sucker for the strong, silent type. You told me how after all these years, how the crossroads dropped you off and left you here. Now once you leave, you can never go back. Now I've walked 1,000 miles in your shoes. My clothes are torn and tattered, my heel bruised. And I think I understand you now. Yes, I understand you now. Well, I didn't know about your demons, but fed them all, kept them screaming in your ear all day and night. But after all these years, my own demons fuel my tears and they keep me on my knees. Now I've walked 1,000 miles in your shoes. My heart is torn and tattered, my ego bruised, and I think I understand you now. Yes, I understand you now. Walk 1,000 miles in your shoes. My clothes are torn and tattered, my ego bruised, and I think I understand you now. Yes, I understand you now. In final moments, it was crystal clear as strong to whisper in my ear. Things you wish you'd done and never said. Then in a dream it came shining through. Your eyes were clear, you seemed brand new. You said, "Son, I feel for you." You said, "I walked 1,000 miles in your shoes. My soul is torn and tattered, my ego bruised, and I think I understand you now. Yes, I understand you now." Well, no, I thought it strange when you told me that one day your dreams would change, that you were a sucker for the strong, silent type.